as you probably well know, how it spreads and takes over wetland areas and causes some environmental or economic harm in some areas. So,
So is that to say then that cannot interbreed with your native Phragmites? There's no cross
well,
pollination?
we think there probably is, probably some, but
But yet you're calling it a different species,
the crossbreeding one,
the invasive versus the native.
right? They're different.
That's a picture though of invasive.
That's the invasive one, yes. Is Craig out there? Lost me. Click on
Dead center of the screen.
there it goes. Let's see if it worked now. Oh yeah, there we go. Let's go here. So invasive organisms, there's 50,000 species been introduced over the, in the past 500 years into the US, but not all of them are invasive. Out of 4,200 weed species, 630 cause economic harm or excessive harm, I guess. So it's maybe hard to see here. Hope no one's looking. He's dumping out his fish tank. And so, this happens all across the United States. Some school class has some project with fish or weeds or something or whatever, whoever it might be. It'd be just somebody ordered something in their aquarium. So they'll take it back out into their creek or river and dump it. And that's how things get spread and get started in some areas. We had in Lincoln, Nebraska, there was ornamental decorations and it had invasive Phragmites in it. And so they took it to, can't think of what the name of the agency was there in Lincoln. But anyway, they got that invasive Phragmites taken out of the Hobby Lobby stores in like 6 states right here in the Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, and these areas. So it's out there. So the ecological effects of invasive species, they outcompete native and endangered species, less survival of the native species. They lower the diversity of native species, reduce hunting and fishing potential, and the habitat aesthetics are diminished. So now we're kind of getting into the different strains of Phragmites here. So what is a strain? A group of genetically related organisms within a species with distinctive characteristics. So each year the flu comes out, there's different strains. They only give us a shot for so many strains, and we may not have the right shot against that particular one. So in corn, there's different types of corn, strains of corn, yellow, white, mixed, various things. So in Phragmites, this is back in the early 1900s, all across the United States, there was a lot of native Phragmites patches. In the southern, there was a South American strain, and lo and behold, the introduced Phragmites was on the East Coast. Probably came over in the ballast of ships from Eurasia, and they dumped the water out, and there the Phragmites, invasive Phragmites started. Works its way across the United States. Some of this might be a little hard to see. I got a blue background on my show and it's kind of black, so we'll do our best here. So what is different? We've got native Phragmites on the left here, an invasive on the right. There we go. Native Phragmites is maybe a little bit lighter colored. Has a little few more, call it the bug spots, little black spots on there. The invasive is a darker green. No bugs, bug free on it. So it's just a real more robust plant. I've seen some patches coming down here and I could tell that they were probably the invasive type. Just a big, thick, dense patch, a little taller. So the native is on the left. Invasive is on the right. The native maybe has a fewer leaves, a little lighter colored, less bushy flowers. Can't always go by that, but the invasive type, well, that's really hard to see. Definitely more leaves, darker leaves, dense growth, and bushier flowers. Sometimes the invasive type has a big, thick plume on it, the flower on it. And it's just a big, thick, dense patch. And sometimes not sometimes, most of the time, the invasive type sets out runners and new rhizomes that could grow a foot a day and shoot up a new plant. And so we've rolled up rhizomes that are 30 to 50 foot long. It's just an aggressive plant where we don't find that aggressiveness in the native. So in my other county, in Howard County, I've got some pretty big patches. We're talking 20, 30 acres of invasive or native Phragmites. Native. Got other patches of invasive also, but this native stuff is just in wetlands and it really don't spread too much or hurt too many things. So blade color, thicker, darker green, and white line down the middle of it. Native has thinner leaves, lighter green, and no center ridge. The leaf collar. The native has a purple leaf collar, thin vein. The invasive is a white leaf collar and a thicker vein. The native is Lyle.
Yes.
You brought in the Phragmites, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And that's an invasive Phragmites there. And you can tell a little bit too, it's the native would have a kind of a sunburn, a reddish stem, where this does not have that reddish stem. And so when I come up on a patch of Phragmites, this time of year, it's a great time of year to be inspecting for Phragmites and looking for it. Sticks out like a sore thumb out there. And so you pull up to it, you can tell that it has a red stem, or it's a little less densely populated. The head might be a little less, that type of thing. And so, yeah, so my characteristics this time of year can be helpful. So the stem color in the wintertime, just what I said, the invasive is a lighter colored stem. The native a darker stem or sunburn type, kind of like that right there, a little reddish. In the springtime, invasive is more of a beige, and the native is a red stem on it. So there's a little bit of differences there in the plant height and the population of the stand. A little shorter on the native, a little less dense, a little taller and more denser on the invasive type. Another picture of it there. The invasive type's on the left this time. A little darker green, a little taller. The natives on the right, a little shorter, less dense, so. There's some native and invasive, just the density of it, that type of thing. But, yeah, like I said, up our way, we have a lot more native.
You know, like in a watershed situation, have you got a handle on how much more moisture the invasive was gonna prevent from getting into your watershed lakes or ponds?
No, I really haven't done too much on water usage as far as that, so.
I know we've got some programs, some in our CS or something where you can get grants to take certain trees out, not all of them, but some trees out so that more of the water reaches the watershed lakes.
What would be the odds of us having a native species of Phragmites here, like 1 or 2%?
Probably pretty low,
I
probably,
would
yes. There's a few pictures of it. Yeah, we started this way back in 2008, so we've got some pretty decent photos along the way. And so there's along a waterway. How tall it is, that stuff's probably 10-12 foot tall. Make good silage for cattle. Got to get to it though. It does, backing up just a little bit, grazing that early in the spring works excellent. And so grazing works real well on that. Just grazing it when it's smaller, but once it gets up and stemmier, they're not going to eat it by any means. But grazing works real well. Picture on top there is one of the river channels. That's what it used to look like. We were completely infested with Phragmites in some of our river channels. There's a picture of the runners and rhizomes. Lifting that up and how it sets new roots and shoots. It's just impressive how it can do that. And water usage, you know, I don't have any of those figures. One of the senators, I think it was probably back in 07, 08, probably when he was fighting for our legislation. He put down some figures of water usage that it could be using, and take that, multiply that out, and it was some huge number that he had no really scientific background to go on, but it was some pretty good numbers.
And grazing can be cattle, doesn't need to be sheep or goats.
Yeah, it can be cattle. Yeah. Yeah. So there's just kind of a listing of native versus introduced. Like I said, the base of the stems are rough and tan, and so that's another sign. If you take your thumbnail and run it around the side of it, it's got ridges in it, some ridges. Where the natives would be more of a smooth stem, and so that's another sign. Dense seed heads, dark colored. So yeah, there's just some of the characteristics between the two of them, but most likely you guys are just fighting the more of the invasive type down here. So are there any particular questions on Phragmites right now?
Which one has the rib down the leaf?
That's the invasive type. Yep. So I'll switch gears just a little bit here and tell you a little bit how we've been fighting this. Weed management areas in Nebraska started back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So we've been going at this for quite a while. 98 was the first one. We've got about 12 weed management areas now here in the in the state of Nebraska. There's numerous partners that work together. You know, we got environmental agencies, NRDs, landowners, counties, and so work together in certain areas, in particular projects. You know, we'll say the northwest part of the state's kind of fighting houndstone up there. Yellow flag iris. There are a couple of species that they're fighting and working on. We'll go down to the southeast part of the state. They're working on Cerisa Lesbides. They got different projects going on. I'm in this project area going from the Colorado border through central Nebraska and over to a town called Columbus. And so we work on the Platte River system, doing a lot of control work. The Twin Valley weed management area on the Republican River, down on the southern tiers, they work on Phragmites also. They've been spending some money on clearing and removal of brush species. And so there was areas in Franklin, Webster County, where when we started these projects, they could only, because Kansas thought they needed so much water, and they were suing us for like $72 million. And so there was areas of the river that could only handle 300 cubic feet per second. So they started spraying Phragmites, cleaning out the river system. Now the river can handle over 1,000 cubic feet per second. And so we got that lawsuit down to $4 or $6 million. And so it was very minimal at that time. So water's able to get to Kansas, and things were working out a whole lot better now. So not much flooding going on in the Republican River and everything. So in our area, we're doing a lot of Phragmites spraying. And so, like I said, we do a lot of helicopter work. The helicopters out of Mississippi, and they've been doing that since 2008. Same company. So like I said, some other invasives that we're fighting, of course, some cattails, Russian olives, hound's tongue, Scotch thistle, eastern red cedar. That's a never-ending battle. Cerisa lespedeza. We're fighting more yellow flag iris now in the state on some waterways, wetland areas, things like that. And of course, Phragmites. So these projects, we get a lot of funding through, of course, the Nebraska legislature. We've got the Environmental Trust. We get some grants through Department of Ag, NRCS. Got some federal grants. Got a lot of NRD partners, and so a lot of environmental groups that I work with in my particular area, for the Central Flyway. Cranes go through there, geese, and everything else. So I work with a lot of environmental groups up that way. So, you know, we've put in over $20 million into these projects, getting a lot of things done, but there's always challenges along the way. New work to be done, of course, but the maintenance is continuous. Like I said, we'll do spraying with helicopters and everything else. Next year we'll come back and do some more through the same areas. There might be new patches available to spray. Trying to get participation from landowners and everything. And like I said, the landowners, getting them to buy in and do some maintenance on their own. And in our area, we've got a cost share program going on. And so we'll give them the herbicide. It's got to be a glyphosate product to do some Phragmites spraying. And they're part of the area that they own of the river system. And so otherwise, they could have a contractor come in and do it. We will still provide the herbicide, but they have to pay the labor.
So when is it that you introduced the Amazapure company?
When?
Well, you said glyphosate only.
Well, just because according to the label on the Amazapure, they can buy it and use it, but we're not going to give it to them. Okay. It's the little wording on the label where we can't give it to them.
I see.
So we just give them glyphosate. Glyphosate's not quite the answer, doing a little bit of that, but it does okay, 60% control. But, if they want to buy the imazapyr and do it, we'll go that route, but we're not going to give it to them in our cost share.
So of the imazapyr that's gonna hit the ground, do you get any effectiveness out of that, or due to the perennial nature of it, does that?
Most of it, we like to have it green and growing and taken up by the
Foliar
leaves,
action?
by the foliar action into the root system. We like to do it, of course, before a frost, spray before a frost. We've tried some after a frost or a freeze. And we've also did some trials of spraying it like a month after a frost too. Results weren't quite as good as doing it before for the foliar uptake. I'm sure there's a little bit of activity with the ground, the ground sterling action, the residual getting in the ground, but we like to have it foliar uptake. So just the goals, the partners, build new partnerships, evaluate what's been done, monitor what's been done, and keep the landowners involved. We just added, a year or so ago, we added another weed management area. So that's where I said we go from the Colorado border over to Columbus in the eastern part of the state. So we have got a lot of miles of river system to cover and a lot of acres to go. So Phragmites choke channels, reducing the flow conveyance and wildlife habitat. It increases the flood potential and consuming valuable water. Let's see, out kind of in west central Nebraska, there were channels that were completely Phragmites. So we had a big flood come through, laid it all over and did nothing to the Phragmites, no scouring, of course, or nothing. And so we want some scouring action. We've done some disking of Phragmites in the river, because ours is a couple 100 yards wide. The Platte River is a big river going through Nebraska, so we disc some islands and things like that just to get the sand moving and get some of the channels open, get some of the sandbars scoured off and things like that. So
That doesn't tend to just spread it?
it can, if you get some water on there, you can take them little chunks and move it down and they'll grab on somewhere and start a new patch. And that's chance you take. You got to get them sandbars scoured off so they can keep the sand moving.
So the water flows.
The water flows over it. Otherwise, that Phragmites will just collect the sand and sediment, and it'll just start its own island. It'll never scour it off. So
I've got a pond that has showed up in this year. And there is nothing above it that it could have come from. It is there, but it's a patch about like this. And tell me how it got there.
I would have to say probably wind.
Wind or birds?
Wind or birds. Yeah,
So birds can carry it or relocate it?
probably. We're leaning towards a lot more of the wind. Guy told me last fall that somewhere they did a study, and I'm not for sure where this was, in Nebraska, I'm not sure where, but anyway, they did some painting of the seed heads of the Phragmites, different colors. And I don't know how they got a screen up to catch it, but they found seeds 30 miles away. 30 miles. So that's how we're thinking a lot of it gets spread.
We used to have, when I was at K-State many years ago, a plant pathologist had a big gelatinous kind of screen up on top of Akron Hall. And he told me they catch all kinds of stuff up there. Bugs.
Yeah.
They were looking for plant pathogens, but certainly they would be catching seeds as well.
Lincoln, Nebraska, the weed superintendent there, he's a fairly decent sized county. And he runs the tall weed ordinance in Lincoln also. So he's got decent sized office, he's got 6 inspectors. And so they do a lot of inspections. And they have got I think it's over 1,000 sites of Phragmites in Lancaster County around the Lincoln area. And how does it get there? He really doesn't have a major river system going through his county. He's got Salt Creek, which is a runoff from Lincoln's runoff water, makes it out to the Platte River. But where does he get all the Phragmites? In Lancaster County? And it's further, it goes south too, down to Gage, Beatrice, in that area. It's kind of a little hot spot, but, wind, we're thinking, but.
But it says in your pamphlet here that it's rarely by seed.
Right. How do they get started? All these places, they're not that viable, though. You're right. They're not the most viable seed around. But
Well, a lot of times nature,
Crazy.
though, in its abundance, it can survive with a low percentage.
What seems to me like what we have around here, this gentleman and I had the same thing that's showing up just out of the blue. It's gotta be by seed. So, it's like, rarely by seed, it's kind of a myth.
Yep.
Thing.
Cause this is the bottom of a canyon. I mean, it didn't.
right. And I got a few places up right in Howard County. Just out in the middle of nowhere. There's no other Phragmites that I know of within miles, 4 or 5, even further, 6, 7 miles.
Is the morphology of the seed such that it enhances its ability to catch wind and blow? Or is it just a little round seed like millet
It's a pretty light, it's a light seed.
without any appendages or anything?
It's a little cotton on it, I think.
Ah.
So it's in the right wind. And we were doing some drone spraying here last fall, and it was pretty windy as the drone was about ready to be done. And it was just, whether they were all seeds or not, but anyway, they were just flying right past me. It's just like there's a lot of it. So our control projects, we, like I said, direct control, helicopter, airboat, and drones. Drones are a big thing right now. A lot more operators getting into drones, doing spray, and the drones are getting bigger. A few years ago, they only carried like 2 gallons. Now they're carrying over 10. And so that's a great deal. I had some spraying done on the river last fall, and it'd go up and over some trees, and we could barely see it through these trees. But he was watching it on his monitor, and he goes, "Oh, well, there's more Phragmites out there than we know of." So he kept spraying it, and come back and done some others by the trees, and so doing a real good job right now for us.
What volume do you deliver per acre when you're using that drone?
It's
Or the other way to ask it, how many acres does a 10 gallon?
5 gallons. You can do maybe a few acres off of that.
5 gallons, that's pretty high.
So maybe it's not, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
Not sure in total numbers,
Okay.
I think he
I
can,
was just curious.
There it is.
How low you dare to plug it.
I think he went on a certain percent solution on that. He was a massive beer product, so he was on a percent solution. Talk about the cost. This is just, we get shape files from our helicopter spraying. And so you can see exactly where they spray on the river system and what they do and how many acres they sprayed in our particular county. And so that's just a particular area, but I'll know how many acres they sprayed in Hall County on the river. And I can take that information to my county board, my weed board, things like that, saying, here's what they sprayed. And so, you can see exactly. The green is the spring. And the red is the fall. Where you can see it's a dividing line there. It's the Elm Creek. Elm Creek diversion. And so there's irrigation restrictions. And so upstream, we had to use glyphosate product. Downstream, we could use an imazapure product. So the imazapure products do have an irrigation restriction on them. And so you got to watch the labels on that particular situation. So yeah, kind of hard to see from, just gives us some aerial view of what it was and what the river looks like and how we're coming along, getting things sprayed and opening things up. So overall, we're getting there, but just takes a lot of time and money to keep it going.
What would you say is your success rate? I mean, I know you probably had sprayed 2-3 years in a row, maybe 4.
Right.
Is it phenomenal what you're getting done or not?
The imazapure products are doing a real good job. Yeah. But if we miss a bridge segment or, we get blown out, so we don't get into this area and you miss this particular stretch for a year. You come back the next year and you can tell that we hadn't been there.
But in a situation like mine, it's very small.
Oh, sure.
And stuff. So the recommendation was use a measure for and twice a year.
You probably wouldn't need to do it twice. You could probably do it twice. Go out and spray it in whenever. The recommendation is spray it before frost.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be August or September range. But what I tell folks is go out and spray it in June or July when it's up and growing. You can see it. And if you got a great big patch, I'm talking the size of the building or size of this room, go out and do some spraying. Come back in a month. Hit it again, or spray your way to a patch. Do it again. If you're using a imazapure product and if you get it all, you may not be able to find it in the fall, or you may not be able to find it next year. And so you might be in pretty good shape. So
where'd you showed some of those application areas going up into, is that the Sandhill region of Nebraska? Is it not really fully invaded all those areas yet?
No, it's really not up into the sand hills. The sand hills in northern Nebraska or northwest Nebraska, they have a fair amount of native Phragmites. So, but they're always on the lookout for invasive types also. So there's
So if the seed set in the fall, is it going to be more seed carried by a north wind or the summer south winds?
probably say the strong north winds in the wintertime.
Right.
That's what would be my first assumption.
Oh, I sprayed some Phragmites with them back in mid-September.
Uh-huh.
And I'm disappointed in the result. I was expecting to burn it down. Now, it didn't really change colors. Did I do any good or did it go?
Well,
to the root?
what we're finding out is spray it and walk away. Now come back this spring, in a few weeks or whatever, and see if anything's starting to grow. Chances are you won't see anything growing, or you'll just see a few here and there. So yeah, like when we spray with a helicopter in the fall, we spray a lot in September.
You don't turn it around like.
Not really. No. You won't see the activity.
Are you gonna wanna put a surfactant
Yes,
in there with it?
you can. Yeah.
What about burning it before you, like in this time of the year when it's all just brown and you got big growth of it?
You can burn it. Doesn't do a whole lot of good, but at least it gets rid of the vegetation on top, dead vegetation. More accessibility to it or such.
Does it do much good as far as?
Not as far as control, not really. Not really.
Wouldn't it be beneficial if you're gonna spray in the spring though, to get all that debris out of the way?
You
So
can, yeah, if you got that opportunity.
you get more deposition on your new tissue to absorb the herbicide.
Yeah, you can. So there's, I mean, that's what it looked like, one of the channels that was completely infested with Phragmites and sprayed with a helicopter, so. And I'm not exactly sure, that's not one of my pictures, be nice to find that picture again and go back and take a photo of it today and see what it looks like. So yeah, there's you know, a little bit of the controls, like I said, you were talking the imazapyr products, Arsenal, Habitat, Polaris, Echo Imazapyr, 4 to 6 pints per acre, gives you pretty good control, 85 to 95% control. You know, it's up there. Aquatic glyphosate, pretty high percent solution. Doesn't give you the greatest control, but you know, it does all right. Disking, not much control. Burning, not much control either. You know,
So where would you put grazing up there?
you know, year after year, it's going to be up there, up high. If you're able to graze it year after year.
And can you effectively exhaust that underground rhizome? With any,
Possibly.
yeah,
Possibly. There's a few landowners on the Platte River that they graze the area and they don't have any Phragmites, or at least it's not, you know, visible. I'm sure if they quit grazing, eventually they sure would have some pop.
do they have any data on how long the seed can lie dormant,
Oh,
or does it
I don't-
just automatically sprout?
not sure on that one. Like I said, it's not the most viable seed around, but we see it popping up all over the place. So I mean, enough of it gets the right conditions to germinate. So in our weed management area also, we do a lot of education and awareness. Got the Weed Watch magazine, got other landowner guides. I brought some Weed Watch magazines out there on the table and some other information also about Phragmites and things. And so there's a couple different versions of the Weed Watch magazine. So take a few with you and different articles in there about various things there in Nebraska. This just is our weed management area, from, like I said, Colorado to the Columbus area. We've spent almost $8 million, but I guess, and we've sprayed 52,000 acres over the course of the years. But the thing we like to hang our hat the most on kind of is 92 to 93% of it goes on the ground. We don't spend a lot on coordinator salary or anything else. We get a lot of that money out on the ground, and so that's a big benefit to us. And we go for approximately 380 miles of river system in our area, so big area. Lots of partners to work with, working with the partners and trying to do some good things. Some of our goals, yeah, just what I said, based on our expenditures, takes us about $650,000 a year on our area just to maintain what we have and what we've done. Lots of partners, and working together with, like I said, we're kind of fortunate in our area. We do got environmental groups, so we're working with the Platte River Recovery Program, Nature Conservancy, Audubon, a lot of folks. So funding is pretty decent, and we get a lot of things done. Second one, the river capacity, and we can't quantify some of these things. We've river capacity's doubled in the past 15 years. Without annual efforts, you know, within 3 years, it could be back to where it was back in 08. We have in my area, we've actually we've raised the flood gauge level on, in New Grand Island area. And so due to, invasive species control on the river system. I'm just gonna hit on this real quick. A number of years, has been going on for a couple of years now, but a number of years ago, bunch of groups and we just had some out of the box thinking about getting an endowment started in our weed management area for Phragmites control for the future. And so we started the Platte River Resilience Fund, and it's an endowment. And so a lot of times we go to these agencies, the NRDs, like I said, the recovery program, Nature Conservancy, a lot of these. And so we're starting with our inner circle, and instead of asking them for, $20,000 or $40,000 each year, we'll say, how about giving us whatever figure we come up with for that particular group, about $200,000. We put it in the endowment and we'll never come back to you again. So it's been working, on some of these agencies. We've got a lot of them on board. We've got, we're looking for over $10 million in this endowment. We're over $1 million right now. And so we've, been working at it just, a couple of years. And so, I just had one of those meetings this morning, and we're looking for a fundraising person to help us go out farther, and get out to some other people that like to help the environment. One lady was going to a meeting today. She was going to talk to somebody from Peter Kiewit out of Omaha. So,
Do you get help from like Ducks Unlimited or Fisherman's Group?
yep,
things like
yep.
that?
They use a supporter, and so we were able to get a little funding from them. And some people don't like it to go to an endowment, and so we can work things around that some groups can, and other groups will put it right to the on-ground work.
But it would have an impact on your recreational opportunities in the
Yeah,
outdoors.
we've got cities we're getting some towns on board because a lot of the towns that are close to the rivers could flood, or their water comes from those rivers. So yeah, that's something we're working on, and it's not gonna affect us, me right now, it's for the future generation, really. And so for the future of our river system. So. And we're through the Nebraska Community Foundation there in Nebraska, and so they house it and manage it and everything. So, yeah, if you eventually got 14 million in there at 7% interest, you'd be at 650,000 a year. So that's what we could live on if you got 7%. Well, I'm about done here, but quickly here on the have been involved in the North American Invasive Species Management Association over the past number of years and everything, and so we empower invasive species managers across the United States, Canada, and in Mexico. Network organization for invasive species managers, supporters, and educators. We've been around since the early 90s, having conferences and, we do legislative work and things like that. So we represent a couple countries, over 30 states and 4 provinces in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And so we have the weed-free products. We can certify hay. We can certify gravel. We're on certified mulch now. We can certify that. So we've got Play Clean Go activities. We have monthly webinars, professional development activities. National Invasive Species Awareness Week, which was last week. A lot of things going on in Washington, D.C. with that week. We've got mapping standards. And so Got their Play Clean Go. Here, there's our Weed Free Products Committee. You can, like I said, we can inspect gravel pits to make sure that the gravel that you're getting is weed free. So if that particular gravel pit, maybe it has Phragmites around it or whatever it might have. They're digging it out, loading it on the trucks and taking it out to the gravel roads. Doing some gravel pit inspections about the membership. So anyway, what I'm getting to here is, and I'll send Craig some more information on this as the summer goes on, but this last year, the annual conference was in Florida. Happened to be, it was supposed to be at Fort Myers, Florida. Well, lo and behold, what happened there? It got wiped off the map almost. So they moved it. We were tired of, I'm not on the board anymore, but they were tired of virtual conferences. And so they found a spot it's Orlando or Kissimmee, Florida. So we went down there and lo and behold, what happened? We got hit by a hurricane. So it wasn't a strong hurricane, but it was a tropical storm. Well, we couldn't go on our tours and everything else, but it all was fine. But yeah, our organization got hit by 2 hurricanes. So this year, it's in Lincoln, Nebraska, October 16 through 19. And so, like I said, I'll send Craig some information, maybe even get it out to the folks if you guys would like to come up. We're gonna have some tours. We'll be showcasing some of our Phragmites projects on the river system. We're gonna have other tours also down to like Spring Creek Prairie. It's an Audubon prairie. So there's going to be a few other tours involved in that. But the one we're going to be up on the river system between Lincoln and Omaha. We'll have airboats there. We'll have drones, helicopters, demonstrating what we've done and things like that. So, and then next year in 24, it's in Missoula, Montana. And so we moved this conference around the United States and Canada to showcase what's going on in those particular areas. And there's call it the Foundations for Success coming up in October there in Lincoln. So the
How big a problem is it in other states? I
uh
mean, you mentioned Montana and
they're finding a little bit of it. I know South Dakota's finding some, but of course, when you get over to the East Coast, they're finding they've got a lot of it over there.
so as your plat runs into the Missouri and winds up in touching Iowa and Missouri, are they
To be there,
on board with trying to control it as well?
don't know what some of those other states are, what they're really doing, but so. The other,
Is there an opportunity to get on top of it where it does not come back? Or is this gonna be pretty much a continual management to a certain level?
in certain situations, like in little areas, I think you get rid of it, Now in our Platte River situation, that we're gonna manage that forever.
When you're in those smaller areas, I mean, like I see a lot of it here is like
Right.
waterways, and they're usually pretty, they're swampy. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
is there a grass that you can follow that with that can compete? I mean, something that sparks is like Canlo switchgrass or something like that.
I'm not sure. It's gonna take, if you spray it with the Imazapure product, it's got that residual, so it's gonna be there for a while.
Yeah,
But then trying to reseed with something, to,
yeah.
I was down at a tour further east of here last fall in a project where they had the Phragmites and I think they had miscanthus or Chinese silvergrass too, but it took over the dam. I mean, the whole dam was covered. Right, so then what do you do? How do you get rid of it? You just try to shred it off, keep it down. you know. That's a little trickier situation there, so. I think, getting after some of these small patches, with the Amazepure product and such, I think they're a battle that can be won.
One quick question, I noticed you had on where you didn't recommend disking, it didn't have very much. The only reason why I asked is I've noticed this spot over in Russell County where, wet area dried up this last summer and. You know, they came in and burned everything and then dissed it.
Mhm.
What do you think those risings will still
Probably
be viable?
still be there, yeah.
Do you know how long it takes for those risings to completely be not viable?
Depends on how dry it stays.
That's right, gets or stays, right. Yeah, I've heard of folks digging some of those up and throwing them in their pickup, and a few days later, they throw them in water and they wind up in grow. Right. Dry out.